Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Solutions Pod, where we talk to people who are working to solve some of the world's most pressing problems. I'm your host, Jay Harvey Lewis, joined by our wonderful co-host, Anastasia Vasovic. Today, as part of our Healthy Habits focus for the month of January, it's our pleasure to speak with Olivia Haas from honoryourcore.com. Olivia is a certified holistic nutritionist from Hawthorn University who specializes in an organ that doesn't usually get much attention, but plays a very important role in the health of many other parts of the body, including the digestive, endocrine, immune, and nervous systems. Before we get started, I want to mention that Solutions Pod is brought to you by NatureHub.com, a platform that I helped found to help people more easily access local, healthy food and eco-friendly choices for making the world a better place. You can also find Olivia and many other community impactors on naturehub.com in the inspiration section. Olivia Haas, it's such an honor. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you became a holistic nutritionist that specializes in an organ that most people really don't think about much until it becomes a massive problem.
Yeah, so I think like most nutritionists, we kind of learn from our own experience, and that's really what got me on the path to be a holistic nutritionist. I found through my own experience the power of healing the body when you just give it the right environment to do so. So I started experiencing issues when I hit my 20s, when I started like losing my hair. I was dealing with uncontrollable anxiety, depression. I was having a lot of hormonal imbalance issues and no idea what was going on. And luckily, my mom encourages me to not just take medication as the first route, like figure out what the root cause is and figure out what your other solutions are. So she actually, and I have so much to thank to her because of it, but she ended up sending me to a doctor that kind of mixed Eastern and Western medicine. And when I went to her, she basically was like, okay, I can put you on a hormone replacement therapy. I can put you on anti-anxiety medication, sleep medication, or you can leave my office and come back in 6 months. And she's like, in the meantime, your main goal is to reduce stress. So start to remove out some of those like things that I was overfilling my plate. And long story short, she diagnosed me with hypothyroidism, and that's kind of what triggered me to start going on this path. It was never like an easy road. I, dabbled in the bodybuilding world. I did every fad diet out there. I did tons of macro counting, lived off protein powders and all that kind of stuff. And then I've always, in the period of it, always had digestive issues, but was becoming more in tune with my body. And so fast forward to my 30s is when I started, my hormones were changing again. And I started dealing with a lot of gut issues. And I thought it was okay, now that I knew what I've gone through this experience, I was like, my thyroid's mad, like I'm overdoing it, I'm overstressed. And I was going to different doctors at the time, and they just said it was my adrenals were whacked out, and put me on like a Candida protocol. And with the Candida protocol, you tend to eat a little bit more healthier fats. Well, I was dealing with chronic constipation at this point, and 6 months into me doing this, I felt better. But then I started experiencing what we call gallbladder attacks. So I would have weeks of mixed bowel movements, and then all of a sudden I would get extremely nauseous. And then these severe abdominal attacks would start. And the abdominal pain with gallbladder symptoms is like, I don't know how to explain it to anybody. It's just you're on the floor trying to breathe it out, and you're like, what the heck is going on with my body? And for someone that, like, I consider myself pretty healthy, I didn't quite understand what was going on. And I was in my first year of school at this point, and when I started developing these attacks, I had like 3 weeks of attacks going on. And I was in between working with a gastroenterologist and a naturopath. So I was combining the different medicines, which I think is extremely important. And during that time, I started making different dietary changes just to get myself to eat, because I was losing weight like crazy. I ended up dropping like 20 pounds in 3 weeks because of this experience. And I ended up in the ER once, and they still were like, what's going on? Like, they didn't find stones. They still have never found stones to this day. But I, fast forward short, started learning about the gallbladder and digging into it and being like, what is this organ? Like, the lack of education out there is pretty terrible, in my opinion, pre and post surgery. And so I was asking my teachers a ton of questions just to make it through this experience. And it's still evolving. I'm still learning a ton about this organ and how much it impacts your health and how much it impacts your health long-term without this organ. And for me specifically, like, I have what we call gallbladder polyps. So I have growth on the outside of my gallbladder. And then I also have a low functioning gallbladder. So I get a lot of the symptoms of gallbladder attacks. At this point, I've learned to manage my symptoms, especially with COVID right now. Having gallbladder surgery is pretty tough. So I'm still fighting to keep that little bugger inside me at this point. Whether I end up having to remove it or not, my main goal with any of my clients is to teach them, in the first place, what is the root cause of gallbladder disease? We need to get down to that root cause first. And that way, then you can help reduce a lot of the symptoms you're experiencing, and prevent future stones from developing or prevent future issues post-surgery. Because that's a huge thing that a lot of people experience, and they aren't aware because they're not taught the side effects of gallbladder surgery. So that's my main goal with my clients and through social media, is to educate people on how to get to the root cause, to start healing your body, dealing with gallstones, low functioning gallbladder or gallbladder sludge, and then what to do if you are moving forward with gallbladder surgery, how to prevent future health issues. So it's been a really awesome experience being able to connect with like-minded individuals as I go through my own experience, and it's very humbling. So that's really what drove me in to become a holistic nutritionist. And then as I finished school, I realized that a lot of people need to be educated on this organ.
Wow, that's really interesting. I just want to mention, first off, none of this is medical advice. So if people have any health concerns, you should always consult a physician. And I appreciate the fact that you're open to both Eastern and Western medicine, and are kind of looking for a blend with those. That's really a good approach. I'm kind of curious, like, for people who are trying to avoid having this having to get to the point where their gallbladder is like about to be removed or something, are there any like typical warning signs, like aside from the ones that you had, that people can start looking out for, or like little changes that they can start making to avoid them from getting worse?
Yeah, so I would definitely say, if you have, the number one thing is if you find that you can't digest fats very well. Oftentimes, people will have bloating, or they'll start to develop constipation. And those are probably, I would say, the top two things that people start to experience. So like, if you have chronic constipation, it's not something that you want to ignore. It's something that you need to address. It's not normal to not have on, regular bowel movements. And the same goes if you have loose stool. Those are probably the top two things that will start to show anytime someone has any type of digestive function. But specifically with gallbladder, I would say constipation and having inability to digest fats, that's usually a common sign.
Okay,
and then obviously you get the symptoms with gallbladder when you start to experience the abdominal pain in the upper right. And it usually progresses, for some people, it progresses up their upper back to their right shoulder. But you'll start to feel some tenderness a little under the right, near that right rib cage.
Okay, I'm just, yeah, I'm thinking back, like, have I ever had that feeling? But I don't think so. Okay, well, thank you very much for explaining that. Good things to keep in mind. Are there any like I guess if people are experiencing those problems, obviously they need to see a doctor, but are there any dietary regimens that you found successful since you kind of went through a whole bunch of them?
Yeah, so definitely always consult with your doctor first, and make sure you do the right testing. So usually they'll start with an ultrasound and they'll do some blood work, specifically looking at your liver function. Sometimes they'll follow up with doing a HIDA scan. So once you do all the testing there, when we're looking at dietary changes with gallbladder, long story short, there's not a one size fits all diet when we're talking about the gallbladder. For most people, the common triggers are fatty food, fried foods, dairy, cheese, a lot of red meat, sausages, pork, sometimes nuts, avocado, like even sometimes healthy fats. A lot of times it's a lot of dirty fats that trigger it, but pulling out, I would say 100%, the first action step you should take is pulling out the common gallbladder trigger foods, which I just named there. The second thing you want to do is start to focus on what your own individual food intolerances are, or what your common food, or what the common food allergies are as well. Because everybody has different intolerances to food, even healthy food. So for you, for an individual with gallbladder disease, for example, like one person may be able to eat an avocado, which is considered healthy. Another person can't. So we want to start to remove out those, the common gallbladder trigger foods, and then work on assessing what your individual food intolerances are. You can definitely always do like a food allergy test, but I encourage you to kind of sit when you eat your meals, reflect on how the foods are making you feel. And usually you can kind of get some type of sign that, okay, I'm not digesting this right. And start to record those foods to keep log of them. And then the other thing that's really important with gallbladder is making sure that you eat smaller meals and you're chewing your food slowly and thoroughly. It's extremely important. A lot of times people with gallbladder can't digest protein. So it's important that when we're eating the protein, or even certain types of cruciferous vegetables as well. So it's really important if you're eating those two different groups, there's other issues going on, but one, just kind of trigger the trays and make sure you're just chewing the food slowly and thoroughly in a relaxed state.
You're mentioning a lot about the diet, which obviously is an important aspect for most health areas of, the human being. But obviously during the pandemic, a lot of people's diets have changed.
Yeah.
Yet there are some people who have started cooking more at home and eating maybe even healthier than before. But unfortunately, the majority of people have kind of developed some emotional eating habits and stress eating and snacking. So have you noticed some changes with your clients, like their needs or their, changes in their behavior and requests?
Yeah, I would say there's two things that have really come up this last year with COVID. First, with gallbladder surgery, it's been pushed off because of COVID. So a lot of people are not able to get gallbladder surgery as quickly as they used to be. So it's bringing a little bit more awareness that, okay, I got to figure out what I can do in the meantime to reduce these symptoms, because I can't go every day with this pain. So I think that part is bringing a little bit more awareness that there's other options out there besides just doing surgery. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do surgery. I think that's a discussion that you should have with you and your doctor to decide that. There's a lot of factors that go involved when we're talking about gallbladder surgery. My main thing is teaching you how to reduce symptoms and prevent future health issues post-op. The second thing that I'm noticing is a lot of people are at home more with their kids. So I am seeing a little bit more positivity in the regards that people are more conscious, that they're like, I want to feel healthy for my children. That's a positive that's coming from this. And the third thing is with COVID, obviously, we're, like you mentioned, we're dealing with more stress. We're eating more things that we normally wouldn't. And I am noticing a spike in people dealing with gallbladder issues. And that's partially due because they aren't able to eat certain things like fatty foods, fried foods, like dirty fats. You can only eat those so much before your body's like, hey, knock it off. And it'll start to send you signals. It's just being conscious of when those start to come up. The number one thing that I said is like, when your body's under a state of stress, you usually will start to have mixed bowel movements. And that's kind of an indication that your body's telling you like, okay, something's not right. We need to figure something out and start addressing it.
Well, it's amazing to hear that there are positive changes with the COVID pandemic as well as negative. That's obviously.
Yeah.
So just on the note of inspiration, can you share some of your long-term healthy habits and food habits that you personally kind of walk alongside of?
Yeah, of course. So number one thing is when it comes to building healthy habits, I think it gets down to the basics of creating habits that are easy for you to implement at first. So we're looking at like small habits that you can bring within your own routine. So things like when you're making dinner at home, just adding or cooking maybe 1 or 2 extra vegetable sides. Or let's say like with exercise, with your children, if they're outside playing, like that's your opportunity to get outside with them as well and do some type of movement with them. I think the thing is when we go into talking about health goals, sometimes the health goals are amazing, but they're not realistic in the sense that they aren't fitting within our lifestyle or they're too difficult to maintain. So your main goal should be focused on creating smaller habits that you can implement daily. Like I said, just adding vegetables into your meals, making sure you're drinking water. So go buy like a steel water bottle and make sure you have that with you. And then getting movement in when your kids are getting movement. Those are all things that you can bring into your life that aren't stressful. And then enjoy the process. So one thing I work with clients on is really reflecting how they feel in the process and reflect how the food is making you feel. It makes it so much more enjoyable. And when we kind of put those positive feelings to the food that we're actually eating, we become more consciously aware and it's easier for us to make those healthy eating habits. So I encourage you after you eat a meal to take some time and ask yourself, how does this make me feel? Does it make me feel happy? Do I feel like I'm full of energy after? Or do I experience digestive discomfort? Am I bloated? Am I crashing after? Those are all signs that the food is not feeling your body right. And food is meant to be there as nourishment. So I encourage you to do the practice, start doing reflections on the food that you're eating, and it makes the process just so much more enjoyable. And secondly, it makes it easier to make those healthy eating habits.
Mm-hmm. And just on the note back about the gallbladder, I was just thinking, you've mentioned about people who did already get an operation. Would there be some sort of different attitude to that? Would they need to keep a different diet to people who are trying to prevent that initially?
So post-surgery, so the tricky part is that oftentimes I haven't gone through surgery at this point, but from my clients, a lot of times they're told they can go back to eating whatever they want post-op. I don't agree with that at all. I think gallbladder surgery changes the physiology of the body. And post-op, I highly encourage the clients to focus on supporting their gut and then supporting their liver. It's extremely important you do a lot of liver support post-op. And with any surgery, there is side effects. And so basically going back to your previous eating habits, I don't encourage it long-term because it can lead to health issues down the road. Or you deal with basically almost the same exact symptoms that you had before gallbladder surgery, because gallstones, in my opinion, is not the root cause. You have to dig deeper in the fact of what really caused those gallstones to develop. And that's when we talk about focusing on your liver, focusing on your gut. But with people with post-op, I highly encourage you to continue eating a healthy diet, but you might be able to enjoy some of those common gallbladder trigger foods occasionally here and there post-op, whereas someone who hasn't had surgery, if they were to touch those common gallbladder trigger foods, it would cause some type of an attack or they would get symptoms right away. So 100% like post-op, you can definitely have more of a balance, a healthy food balance. But long-term health should be your focus, and that's continuing to eat a healthy diet 80 to 90% of the time post-op.
Okay, you mentioned avoiding, like, I guess some of the grosser unhealthy fats. Do you mind just like talking about some of the worst ones? Because I think that like most of the time when we go out to restaurants, we're probably encountering a lot of like strange processed oils, but are there like some that are just like really need to especially avoid?
Yeah, definitely. So when we're talking about oils, vegetable oils, so things like soybean oil, canola oil, palm oil, sunflower oil. So we want to remove those and replace them with healthy oils like olive oil. Coconut oil is usually tolerated the most with, and flaxseed oil is usually tolerated the most for individuals with gallbladder issues. Everybody's intake of healthy fats varies. So definitely removing those dirty vegetable oils. They not only are toxic to your gallbladder, they're toxic to your liver, they're harmful to your hormones as well. So we really want to get those swapped out. And then when we're talking about meat, so making sure we're sticking to quality meat and not the processed meat. So sandwich meat, hot dogs, sausages, certain red meats are triggers for people. I'm not saying don't eat quality red meat, but if we're talking with someone who has a very inflamed gallbladder, they usually can't digest it that well. So you want to swap those out for quality animal proteins, things like wild-caught salmon, wild-caught cod, you have chicken. You can do more leaner portions of red meat. I work with one of my favorite butchers in California is Electric City Butcher, and they're able to modify the fat content in different like steaks and things like that. They're aware of gallbladder issues, so it's pretty cool. They're able to modify that for me when I do choose to eat red meat. It's not that often. And then obviously you have your plant proteins too. So doing things like quinoa, wild rice, lentils. And then cheese. Cheese is a tricky one. I think there's a few factors that go into this. One is the quality of our cheeses nowadays is tough to come by. Actually good cheeses. And that's one factor. But then secondly, like I said, they can't digest fats that well. So looking at cheeses, that one's a tough one. But I would say like even like cream cheese, cottage cheese, those things, like anything that's more processed along that lines. I do know some of my clients like post-op, they're able to enjoy like goat cheese or raw cheese in moderation, and they seem to be doing okay.
yeah, at the very beginning of the discussion, you did mention the hormone balancing as well. So are there any tips for people with these issues? Because I know that for a lot of women, that is quite a serious problem.
Yeah. And it's extremely important to address, especially when we're talking about gallbladder disease. There's a huge connection between hypothyroidism and estrogen when we're talking about the gallbladder. So it's something I focus a lot on with my clients, especially my female clients, obviously. So when we're talking about the hormone balancing, I feel like a lot applies with the gallbladder, the strategy we take with that, as well as how to balance the hormones. So again, we're removing a lot of those toxic foods, processed foods that put stress on our liver and press stress on our thyroid. So we're pulling out those dirty vegetable oils, a lot of those processed meats, processed goods. So you're focusing on more eating for nourishment. And then you look at the key nutrients that help support your thyroid as well. And then when we're talking about lifestyle factors, stress is a huge factor that we need to take into account, both for gallbladder and for someone who has some type of hormone imbalance, because stress puts so much stress basically on your body. And I would say it's like the number one, it's a silent killer is what I often refer to it as, because people don't realize how much it affects their health. And so with stress, I would say focusing on getting that in control. So one, setting boundaries with your schedule, making sure you're not overworking yourself. Two, maybe bringing in some type of meditation or journaling every day. And then also looking at doing breathing techniques. So there's something I work on with clients, even when they're dealing with gallbladder attacks, is doing breathing techniques to kind of wait till the pain passes. So doing like 4 to 6 counts in and 4 to 6 counts out. And then when we're talking about exercise, making sure we're not doing things that are putting extra stress on our bodies. So sticking to a lot of low impact exercises to help reduce the stress and not put additional stress on our bodies, like things like walking, doing yoga, bicycling, doing strength training. Those are all really good things to do. And then we look at your sleep. So making sure that you're getting adequate sleep at night. So anywhere between, like, your goal should be 7 to 9 hours. So just like your children, I say adults should have bedtime too. So making sure you're setting knowing you're consciously aware, okay, what time do I need to turn off the TV, turn off my phone, to give myself time to relax before I go to bed. And then focusing on your foods and making sure you're eating to fill your body with nourishment is extremely important.
I know we've spoken about diet a lot in this conversation already, which is amazing. But I think one important aspect to also touch here is the immune system, because I know for instance, on NatureHub platform, we do get a lot of conversation going about how to actually improve the immune system during this pandemic. It is quite a growing topic at this current day and age. So are there any specific ingredients that maybe we should add to our meals that would boost that immune system?
Oh, yeah. So I would definitely focus, there's definitely key nutrients you want to focus on adding. Things like vitamin C. So citrus fruits, you have papaya is really good. Do I need to close this window? I'm so sorry, because it's starting to go, I'm starting to get the glare again. I'm sorry. So yes, to work on your immune system right now, I would definitely say focus on increasing a lot of foods that have a lot of good antioxidants and are what we consider anti-inflammatories. And the third thing is looking at supporting your gut. So including foods that are things like prebiotics, probiotics, fermented vegetables are really good as well. And when we're talking about our immune system, we want to focus on key nutrients to support your immune system. I would say I mean, you can go into the rabbit hole with this one, but even a lot of nutrients that support your liver during this time, because I always consider the liver is kind of your protector of your immune system. So we want to increase our vitamin C's. So vitamin C's are anything like citrus fruits is a common one, papayas, a lot of dark leafy greens. So then we're talking about our B vitamins. That's a key nutrient as well. Magnesium, vitamin D's. And for the most part, I would say if you, during this time, the number one thing you can do is increase your intake of a lot of like dark leafy greens, because those tend to have a lot of those key nutrients we need to support our immune system, and as well as like our liver. And then the other component is a lot of amino acids. Amino acids usually come from animal proteins, as some plant proteins like legumes and lentils. Those are really good sources as well.
Wow, so that's quite a lot of information to digest, and I know that a lot of people are going to be wanting to find out more from you, and possibly talking to you as one of your clients. So how can people find you, and what are some of the services that you provide?
Yeah, so you can find me. My website is honoryourcore.com. So honor your core means basically putting your mind, body, and healing into play. And then the second thing is on Instagram. My name is liver.gallbladder.nutritionist. And then I'm also on Facebook as Honor Your Core. I do have a gallbladder healing support group on there. And I do offer one-on-one services, as well as basic meal guides for specifically right now gallbladder and fatty liver. So if you're looking for, if you already feel pretty healthy but you're dealing with gallbladder or fatty liver issues and you want just like a template to reference, that's a really good guide as well. But I would say I specialize in a lot of like one-on-one nutrition and lifestyle counseling.
Yeah. So, by the way, what's your how can people find you on NatureHub? Do you have a name there?
No, I believe on NatureHub, it's under my first and last name, so Olivia Haas.
So it has been such a pleasure to talk to you about these issues, and thank you very much for specializing in the gallbladder and for what you're doing to improve people's lives. And I hope we get to talk to you another time. I know you have some other areas of expertise. I'm seeing that you have also done some research into using cannabis for holistic nutrition. So I'm very much looking forward to talking to you again, and I hope everybody will go and check out honoryourcore.com. Did I get that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And thank you for having me as well. And feel free to reach out and connect with me. I'm an open book and would love to connect with you guys.
Okay. And what's the best way to connect with you?
I'm mostly on Instagram. So it's liver.gallbladder.nutritionist.
Okay, awesome. Well, everybody go check her out. And this has been a very awesome episode of Solutions Pod. So thanks everybody for joining us out there. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to add them to the comments of this video, or you can go to naturehub.com into the community page, and there will be some discussions about the gallbladder for you to participate in and ask questions.